the qualities that are looked upon when deciding to get a dog is not necessarily the quality or what we want. It's mostly where we are in our lives on being able to bring in a new animal in our life, especially a dog. Dogs demand a lot of our time, of our energy, and our attention. And it's to look at ourselves and realize these things. When we adopt or purchase a dog, we're looking at at least a minimum of a 10-year commitment, and it could go up to even 15 to 20-year commitment, depending on the dog breed. So that's the first quality that we need to look at, is that first, are we going to be able to be there for that animal for the next 10 to 20 years? Um, and that's important to also note at all life stages that we put ourselves in the next 20 years. Um, that's very important to look at. We also have to look at the time we're able to give to these animals. Obviously, the first years that when we get our dogs will be the most time investment that we'll put into them. So, what it is, what we need to look at for what dog that we decide to bring into our household. The first thing we need to look at is, first of all, breeds. Dogs have many breeds, over 400 breeds that we could look at, and every breed is different in their own way. There's groupments of dogs like terriers, sight hounds, gun dogs. We could start with that. We could evaluate certain breeds to see if they match our lifestyle. That's the number one thing. People mostly get dogs because of their look and not because of what they were bred to do. And that's very important. So the first step to see if it's a right fit for our household is to research the breed. So find a group of dogs that we like. So if we think that, say, terriers are good dogs that match our lifestyles, well, there's over 100 breeds of terriers, right? So there's many of dogs to look and choose from, or breeds to look and choose from. So the first step is to find a groupment of dogs that fits our lifestyle, and then do more research to narrow down the specific breeds that we're looking for. Now, obviously, there's a lot of mixed breeds in this world, and it's very popular to purchase mixed breeds. But we still have to look at the two parent breeds of these mixed breeds to really try to figure out if this is still something that will match our lifestyle. Because even if we get, say, a poodle cross, which are very popular these days, we still have to look at, say, what a poodle is and what a golden retriever is, and see if those two main breeds fit our lifestyle. Because a lot of the times people will think that when we crossbreed dogs, that we'll only get the good out of the parent breeds, but that's not necessarily true. We might get a lot of the bad behaviors that we think about, that we associate these breeds with. So first step is to pick a groupment of dog, find a breed that matches our lifestyle, do a lot of research behind them, then go meet them. So there are plenty of ways to meet the purebred dogs. One, to go into dog shows, try to find breeders with the parent clubs associated with the country that we live in. So say we're really into, we decide that we really like Parson Russell Terriers. We could always go to the Parson Russell Club of Canada, find breeders there, contact them, try to meet their dogs, and then go from there. Now, say if we go to a shelter, a lot of the time shelters have mixed breeds, or all American dogs, as some people call them, where it's not like our doodles, which is a crossbreed between a golden retriever and a poodle. These are crossbreeds where we see 10 and above breeds in these mixes. And when we get these really big mixes, it's hard to predict their genetic behavior as they get older, like we can with a purebred dog. And that it's important to find an ethical shelter that will give you a proper evaluation on behavior, meeting the dog too, and seeing where that dog is in its lifetime, right? On what behavior needs to be worked on, what is his temperament at the shelter, and then going from there, right? So the first thing we need to look at is just the research behind these dogs. Because every dog is different, or every breed of dog is different in behavior wise, just as a terrier was bred to hunt and want to kill vermin. A border terrier was bred to herd and to work with its human, right? So depending on what we want in a dog, that first step of our research will really, really help us put into the direction we want. So that's another good option too, if we're not sure that even after all the research and meeting breeders and meeting dogs, and we're still not sure if actually jumping in to the idea of getting a dog is not fully for us, or the commitment still scares us, that 15 to 20-year commitment still scares us. There are many programs that are done with humane societies in the cities we live in that are foster programs, where one, we're helping these humane shelters to take these dogs away from their kennels, to find them more comfortable environments, to help them to really see their true behavior. And it also gives us that opportunity to see if we're actually made to have a dog. So foster programs vary from humane society to humane society, or rescues in general. They could last a few weeks to a few days to even a few months to even a few years, depending on the animal. So that could be a really good step. We could always ask friends and family to become the official babysitter of the family for when they go on vacation. So that could also be a very good first step, because most people go on vacation for only a week, maybe 2 weeks at a time. So that's a very, very short commitment. Yeah, there's many different types of venues, either house sitting with a company like World Elite, where you get to travel the world and take care of people's dogs, or either um, babysitting for family and friends, or either fostering for a humane society or a rescue. These are all different steps, but these are all different ways to see if our routine, if we could map the routine. Yeah, so that is all humane societies and rescues work differently. So to say that is there a standard to these companies? No, but this does happen. This is a frequent practice where these humane societies, these SPCAs, are open doors where you go into their kennels, or you make appointments with them to meet their dogs, to come and meet the dogs, right? And yeah, a lot of people will get. Most of the time, people will pick because of how the dog looks like, or how their temperament is. But we also have to remember that what we're seeing at these humane societies is only a small portion of a window inside the dog's behavior, or the dog's personality in general, right? So we do get this a lot when working in humane societies, where people say, "I don't care about the breed. I don't care about anything. I just want a dog," right? To me personally, that's a red flag. We should still even look at what type of dog we're looking for, because it'll give us an idea of what to expect, right? Genetics in dogs is very, very powerful, and we can't forget that. But definitely, a lot of people will go to these humane societies and either pick a dog. Now, what we could do is we could also look at what it takes to take care of a dog before going towards that, and really asking questions at the shelter workers about the behavior that we're looking at, or what do we expect in a dog, because that's important too, right? That we need to realize what we're expecting in a dog, because people will expect all different types of levels, right? Whether it's a lot of work, a lot of investment when it comes to training, or I want that perfect dog right away, right? So first of all, when we realize what we expect in a dog, that could narrow down what we're looking for in a dog.
So is it
So
a
that's up to
question?
us to step back and question, what do I want in a dog? Do I want to walk it every day? Do I want to train it every day? Do I just want it to sleep at my feet every day? What do I want, right? Do I want that little hill of it? Because every dog that we get, unfortunately, it's sad to say, at humane societies, a lot of these dogs tend to be the rejects of societies, that they're sent and they're abandoned and they're put as strays, right? And all of them tend to have somewhat behavior problems, or problems in general. Yeah, there's plenty of amazing dogs at the shelter, and some dogs will have little hills to climb, and some dogs will be Mount Everest to climb, right? And it's important to really see what we want, what we're expecting in a dog, and also talking to the shelter employees that work with these dogs day in and day out, and seeing, am I going to be working with a Rural Hill, or am I working with Mount Everest? And not just looking at the dog being like, oh, he's really cute, or oh, he just came and sat at me. Because to me, those aren't good criteria to this is why I adopted the dog. So most shelters will have a question form before adopting to see if first of all you're qualified to most shelters and breeders will have this, and if a breeder does not have a question application, run. And they tend to be a puppy mill or a backyard breeder, and their goal is just to sell you a dog as fast as possible. And these are not ethical breeders. So that's one thing that we should be looking at for breeder wise. But there's many other things that we should be looking at. But yes, most places, most humane societies, and good ethical breeders will have a question form to narrow down if one, you are a good fit for the dog that you're applying for, and if there's any situations on the application form that we could talk about and go in more into detail to really see if this is the appropriate dog that you want to adopt for your lifestyle. One of the bigger issues that we see with newly dog owners is they give up too fast. We see this a lot with shelter dogs. It takes a really long time for a shelter dog to adapt to its new environment. Like we could talk about the rule of 3 hours, 3 weeks, 3 months, where it could take up to 3 months for the dog to fully feel comfortable in its new environment and show its true personality. And in between that, there's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be moments where the dog is going to show bad behaviors, especially when we adopt young dogs. We could take examples of teenage dogs that are adopted in shelters. These dogs were surrendered to these shelters at their most vulnerable time in their life, where their behavior problems are at their worst, because teenage animals are like that. Teenage humans are like that too. They're big ups and downs. And we get these teenage dogs because what happens is people purchase them on an impulse, and they're very cute. They're perfect for the first 7 months of their lives, and then they get into these weird behaviors, or they stop listening to us, and they challenge you every day, and it's easy for people to dump them at shelters. But we got to remember that people are now adopting these dogs and now going into these challenging moments, right? And a lot of the time is we'll get these challenging things where these dogs are pulling on leash, jumping on people, biting hands. So these complicated dogs that we decide to adopt, and a lot of the time people don't realize that dog training takes time. And nothing could be done within 24 to 48 hours. We have to adapt ourselves. We have to adapt our environment, and we have to give these animals time that they need, right? So a lot of people will give up instantly because when they go to the shelter, the dog acts somewhat perfect, and then when we bring them home, it's a whole new story. They start showing other behaviors, and people give up instantly. We could take this also with older dogs when people adopt more senior dogs. Senior dogs tend to be disorientated. They don't know where they are. They're living a big emotion of stress and anxiety. And what we get a lot of the time is we get these dogs that become very vocal for the first week, because we got to remember, dogs that are vocal, that are barking, it's an emotion that they're throwing out, right? And we have to figure out what the emotion is, and that's what we see. These dogs that are very confused and anxious, and they have the opportunity to bark or growl, and people give up on them instantly, and they say, hey, look, this dog growled at my neighbor, and they didn't look at the context, and they didn't look at the situation, and they decided to bring the dog right away. But also when we purchase puppies, one thing that gets people very frustrated is potty training, which is understandable, that waking up or being a day in and day out of having to deal with urine and feces is not fun. But people did not educate themselves before getting these puppies on what are proper ways to potty train. So they put themselves right away in a situation where they don't know how to deal with it. And then after 2 weeks of having to deal with urine and feces, they instantly give up on the dog. Once we put a good plan and match when it comes to potty training could be dealt with within 2 weeks. that we could have a 10-week-old puppy that's somewhat. So these are all behaviors that we see at once we bring the animal home, whether it's a puppy, a teenage dog that's adopted from a shelter, or purchased from the internet, or getting a more of a senior dog and bringing them in their environment where people will give up very fast on these dogs, unfortunately. When a lot of the time is just giving them time and making good plans with these dogs before we adopt or purchase them. Yes, when we decide to take the plunge and purchase or adopt an animal, yes, we should have our dog trainer. We should already have contacts for our dog trainer. I'm not saying already making appointments, but having the numbers and deciding what dog trainers we've already decided on, so we could be able to take that appointment when it's needed. Also having a veterinarian, deciding what vet we have, and their number and an appointment as soon as possible. And yes, that we have a game plan and that we don't do these purchases or these decisions impulsively, because the more impulsively we decide to do on this, the more we regret them very fast. So there's no necessarily a typical day in the dog, because everybody's a bit different with their dog. Or their routine is a bit different with their dog, but a standard on what a dog needs in its daily life is to obviously eat its food, to be walked, to have mental stimulation, so have some sort of training or puzzle game, even things to chew, which is very, very important. That a lot of people lack giving to their dogs are bones and bully sticks and Himalayan chews and rawhide, or there's so many things that we see on the market, but things to chew on, which is so important that every dog should get in their daily lives. And when we lack giving chews to our dogs, we tend to see a lot of behaviors, have bad behaviors that could be prevented by just giving something like a bone for the dog to chew on. Because we got to think that 15 to 20 minutes, and sometimes depending on the chew, could be 1 hour of chewing on something, is the equivalent of 1 hour to 2 hours of physical activity. A lot of people think that the best way to exercise my dog is by running them, by walking them, by going on these long walks with the dogs multiple times a day. And I'm not saying that it's not a good thing to walk our dogs. It is. We need to walk our dogs. We need to let them explore the world, use their nose. But we forget the other steps that are needed and that daily enrichment in our dog. And chews and training are a huge factor in our daily things. So if we could all add these things of giving that appropriate physical exercise, that appropriate mental stimulation for our dogs, we will have a well-rounded dog in our daily lives. Change, obviously, employment and where we live is never a guarantee. Even if we've been with a company for 20 years and we've owned our house for 10 years, yeah, that's a lot of stability. But there's always that question of the what if. But if we really live in a situation where my employment is very iffy right now, or I might be moving in the next few months, or I might be evicted in the next few months, now's not the time to get a dog. And trust me, dogs will be there forever and ever, and that moment in your life will eventually come. And if it doesn't come, well, it's not you're not the right person to own a dog, unfortunately. As much as we love them and want to have them, we could always become the official babysitter for the family, to have that dog in our life, but not have that dog at full time, because unfortunately, your lifestyle is just not stable enough for a dog. And that's a huge factor when we get a dog, is that we have that stability for our animals. That's important. A lot of people we see, or something that's really wanted, is having that puppy and that baby at the same time. And it's a lot of work, that having a baby and a puppy at the same time, or people think that it's very cute to have both, that puppy grow up with that baby. I'm not saying that it's something that's impossible to do. A lot of families do it and succeed at it, but it's double the work. It's double the everything. We have to educate our dogs. So that happens a lot where because we're so focused on this newborn baby that we tend to lax on the type of education that we give our dog for the first 2 years of their lifetime, and then we see these behavior problems. But that's the situation when it comes to young children, right? So yes, it's important that as a family that first of all everybody is okay with a new member, a furry friend in our family. So if we have somebody who is completely against having a dog, well, maybe we should really talk as a family unit and see why is that person against having a dog, and could we work on it, or should we follow that wish? Because if that person is against having that dog and stays against having that dog, a lot of hatred happens, and we don't want hatred when it comes to bringing these members, because dogs realize that they notice that somebody in the family doesn't like them, and it could lead to fear. It could lead to a lot of things, and we don't want that. We want good relations with our dogs. So yeah, it's important to talk as a family member, to family unit, to see if everybody is okay with having a dog, everybody is on board, everybody is going to do the same thing. So that's another important thing, is that routine that we create with our dog, which helps us a lot. And if everybody's gonna be different about it, everybody's gonna have a different training approach, our dog is just gonna be very confused and can lead to bad behaviors too. So that's something very important to talk about as a family unit, that if we decide to get a dog, who is going to be mostly in charge with this dog, who is mostly going to do this training, who's going to mostly do these things, and to stay on track with this routine that we create with our family and our dog. It doesn't always have to be the same person. Some breeds are more connected to a single family member. Some breeds are really open to everybody, go lucky, happy, and they love everybody and they listen to everybody. So that's first of all talking about what breed we bring in the family. So some of them are very unique, and they stick to one person. Feeding the dog will have a huge factor on this. So the person who feeds the dog the most, the dog will most likely be connected to them, or they'll follow them more. So this does happen a lot, where the family member that the mother or the father, the dog will be mostly connected to the father or the mother instead of the kids, because it tends to be the father and the mother that will walk the dog more, they will feed the dog more. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. But some breeds of dogs are just very happy-go-lucky, and they like everybody. So once again, that depends on the personality and the breed of the dog that we choose to bring in our lifestyle. The key message that I would like to talk about mostly is to take your time and do a lot of research. Don't impulsively do this, because these are huge commitments. And yes, that 10 to 20 years can be very, very fast. And it's only a moment of time in our lifestyle, in our life, but it's still, it's a huge thing. And we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our future dog. So it's really to take the time, do the research, meet the appropriate people, meet the appropriate shelters and breeders, and make the proper decision that's connected to your lifestyle. The more impulsively we buy these dogs, the more we regret it, the more we fall into trouble, the more we get frustrated with our dogs and create these bad relationships with our dogs. So the number one thing is take your time. If it takes a few years, it will take a few years, but it'll be more appreciated at the end of it. Take your time, do your research. So we pinned a questionnaire at the bottom of the video with key questions to see really if you're ready to do that first step of getting that dog. Please fill out the questionnaire so I can help you and guide you more. I'll see you in the next video.